Henrietta, you've been involved in a lot of the sort of cultural, political, organizational, economic framework in which a lot of these decisions are being made. What would you add to the way we should think about this problem and the responses to it?
If I could pick up on something that Jason just said that I think is very important. In my last job as the administrator of the United States Agency for International Development and the director of all U.S. foreign assistance, we saw a lot of the issues in this most recent food crisis last year in which we had to respond as a country. And we came up with a 2-year, $5 billion initiative, which will end at the end of this fiscal year. And one of the major parts to it, one of the 4 parts to it, was on science. Because it is important that the scientific discoveries out of our consultative group, our international laboratories, which are doing work, create more nutritious cassava, better work on all of the staple products. And this is a very important issue, and it's, I think, one of the keys to learn about. Well, my sense will follow up on both David and Jason, which is that this is a very important issue for the world, that of how to feed ourselves. As we look forward to the 9 billion people upon this planet by 2050, we currently have about 1 billion people that are in severe poverty and are very hungry. And this is something that has now worried the development professionals around the world. And we are most concerned about the most vulnerable population, which are children under the age of 7 who have experienced more than 3 years of malnutrition. We feel that there are lifetime effects of this, and it is something that will be irreversible. So it's something that you should go away from today knowing that it's urgent, it's important, and it's also something that is solvable. So let me mention 3 areas. The first is that development and agriculture are very broad. You have to look at it as a whole, so that education is important. Are children working in their farms, or are they going to school? Women, an enormous segment of the farming population, how are they treated within a society? Politics, when you are in Afghanistan and the farmers are growing poppies, can you change it with a legitimate crop? It's a political issue. In Liberia used to be food self-sufficient. It is not. For the superb president, it is an economic issue. If you can feed your people and if you can export food. So agriculture and the issue that is before us today is entwined with the issues of water, of energy, of economic rights, of livelihoods. All of these issues are involved in political and economic development. The second point is that it is very difficult in the developing world to work when you are in the midst of conflict. The numbers are that in the countries that we are working in around the world for development and foreign assistance, 60% are in conflict at any time. When a country is in conflict, it is very difficult to move agricultural produce for farmers to be able to work. So whether the roads are blocked by militias or whether the young, healthy farmers are taken from the fields and given guns to go into the militias, it is difficult to move food. It is also difficult to get people back to the land. When we were in Uganda and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Lord's Resistance Army was beginning to stand down, we could see in the villages in Gulu, in northern Uganda, that the young men were returning, but they had been in the militias for 20 years. They no longer knew how to farm. So we were trying to teach farming and agricultural techniques to reintegrate these individuals into society. The Lord's Resistance Army in the Democratic Republic of Congo had a different effect in Goma. This is where the beautiful forests of the Congo begin. And so the local authorities were saying, go in, cut down the trees, and start farming. But they didn't know how to farm. The soil is not ready for farming, and it is hurting the forests. So how you reintegrate after conflicts, during conflicts, is an enormous issue for the world as a whole as you look at these economies. And I will add into this one number for you to remember for livelihoods, which is in the development world, the International Youth Foundation has calculated that in the next 10 years, we need to create 1 billion new jobs. If we do not, you know that we will have continuing issues of unrest throughout the world, and this issue of how to create a livelihood is very much lined up with agriculture, because 70 to 80% of many countries are involved in agriculture. And my last thought is that one of the things that we saw that really began to work is looking at the supply chains, and it's something that we might talk about more. But supply chains and public-private partnerships are a solution to this. This is doable for the world as a whole. So it is science, it is yields and extension services, it's water and how it is used. It's issues like roads and cold storage. When you're talking to the ministers in the developing world, between 30 and 70% is lost after it has left the farm because the roads are bumpy and they bruise the produce, or there's no cold storage, and so it either is ruined at a customs point or it's ruined at a market. We need ports, we need trade, we need finance, we need education. And all of that in that supply chain will mean that we can solve the problems before us.